Most importantly, are we aligned on your risk appetite? Like, are you going to bring us good quality deals? I'm never going to be able to get that from a resume, right? I care more about impact over activity. So what moves my family forward? What moves the business forward? What actually matters for my team? The same goes for my personal life. Just it's made me more efficient and has made things a lot more clear as to what really requires my attention.
We're talking about producers, closers, everything. Two positions that I really are BDOs and closers.
Yeah.
What do you think actually keeps them on top? Like, what do you think what actually top of STF?
Yeah. I think I touched on some of these a little bit.
Oh yeah.
Obviously, yeah. Again, trust and leadership. It's really important that they can trust us to make the right decisions for the business, but also trust them, right?
Also,
Um,
let's stick
yeah,
with the producers because that's when you see not even talking about on top, but when you see a resume of like if a recruiter sent you year, I don't believe in that.
no.
So when you see that, are you like,
Yeah, I'm never gonna say never. I have discounted resumes based on paper. But I think it's important to dig a little deeper, right? Producers are gonna stay where they can win and where they can be successful at the end of the day, right? Like these people want to make money. I get it. I appreciate that,
me
right?
too? Yeah, of course.
But I don't think people leave for money, as I mentioned. Like of course they will, but I don't think that's the driver right now for BDOs. I think they leave when friction makes it impossible for them to produce, and that's what I'm seeing a lot of right now.
Going back to the resume thing. So when
Yeah.
I look at a resume, right, and within 5 seconds, I can tell if it's good or not.
Yeah.
What catches your eye on a resume?
Yeah. I have to say I'm not like the biggest resume person. This is weird as an HR person. I read them, but I feel like I get more of a vibe when I'm reading a resume rather than looking at the specifics. I guess I could talk about what turns me off on a resume, which
Okay,
is
what turns you off?
job hopping is a big no for me. If I see that someone has moved to 6 banks in the past 6 years, I'm immediately that's a no for me, like, something's not working. But I think it goes both ways where you look at a really good resume and someone can produce somewhere else, but fail in your environment really quickly, and then on the opposite spectrum, they could be failing in their environment and succeed at your company. So I think it's important to like have an open mind, and that's why I'm not like the biggest resume person. I know that's like an oxymoron in my industry. But there's just some things that you will never get on a resume when you're talking to a producer that like for us at Port 51 is really important. Like culture, can you follow our process? But most importantly, are we aligned on your risk appetite? Like, are you going to bring us good quality deals? And that I'm never going to be able to get that from a resume, right? So I go with the if I don't see any major red flags on the resume, but I don't love the resume, I'm still going to talk.
You're still going to talk to them.
Yeah.
I mean,
You never know.
you don't though. But when I look at operations, meaning like credit, closures, the one thing that kind of gets me is like all they do is put word. They put their job description. And so what I say to them is, this is a good chance to talk about you.
Right.
Accolades, achievements, numbers.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing for me. And that's
Yeah.
what I think hiring managers want to see. Don't you think like separate them like a little bit apart from everybody else? What
Yeah.
makes you different?
Yeah. I can't like again, it's hard to put everything down on a piece of paper. Like it's difficult. I get it.
Are you currently using AI, like any tools that help underwriting or I've seen closures too? And how do you think AI is going to change our industry?
I don't think we're ever going to use AI to do pre-screens. I'm sure my CTO is I think no, I don't think he thinks differently. I think we're aligned. We like to keep the human aspect of the loan, right? And I think what I love about Port 51 is because we're not using AI, there's always a person looking at a deal, a pre-screen. If there's some redeeming qualities of a loan, but there's some things that might not look great on paper, right? Like somebody has a bad credit score, right? I think it's fair that we ask that question, like, why is your credit score like this? We still have the human aspect where sometimes we might be able to do a loan that a bank might just look at on paper and say, absolutely not. We're never going to use AI for pre-screens. I think where we might start to use AI is our database of loans, using that based on loans that we've closed, loans we've withdrawn, leads that maybe they weren't qualified at the time, and using that database to help us make smarter decisions. So almost like, hey, like based on all the loans you've ever done, red flag, you might not want to do this loan because of these reasons. But we're never going to be in a place where we're using AI to do the credit and closing part of SBA.
Like I said, Brittany, when I first spoke with you, and what I really loved was we talked about our kids.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the human aspect of, just meeting with people. And so I want to pivot and kind of talk about work-life balance and, working full time. And I know you just had a baby, and talking about like a work-life balance. What does that look like for you?
Yeah. Um, I don't think it's equal. It's intentional, right? It's never going to be 50-50. It's kind of just knowing where you need to be present in any given moment. I hear a lot of people say some days you're full in at work and some days you're fully in at home. And I really truly believe that companies should create an environment where you can do both, right? At the end of the day, work is a means to support your life, not to compete with your life. And I think if employees are trusted and supportive, they show up better in both places. For me, it really comes down to accountability. So I don't care if you leave early for your kid's softball game. I don't care if you have to step out for a doctor's appointment. What matters is that you own your work and get it done.
And having a newborn, I'm sure it had, well, yeah, I mean, look, I had Ella, and, I'm a single mom, but it still has its challenges. But you
Yeah,
do what you do, and you do what you need to do.
exactly.
And so finding that work life, I think it's more about pattern and how, the kids grow up and things change. But just like anything, like in the job too, you got to change and you got to pivot. What's the hardest part of being a working mom in a high demand role? Because, like I said, you're all over the place, which is a good thing. You have your hands in a lot of like pots.
Yeah.
How do you boil the spaghetti?
Yeah. I don't think the hardest part is the time. I think it's the mental load. Like you're always pulled between two really important roles and you never want to let anybody down, right? Like when you're physically in one place, your mind is in another. When you're at work, you're thinking about your kids, and when you're home, you're thinking about work. And when you're in a high demand role, like you never turn off, right? Like I'm laying in bed and I'm like, oh my God, I forgot to do that. And I think you just have to be present where you are, right? Like when I come home from work at 5, like 5 to 7 is my kids' time. If you need to call me after 7, that's great. But I need to, I need to unwind and spend time with my kids. I think it's less about balance in a perfect sense and more just being intentional with your time and giving yourself grace when it's not all perfect, right? You can only do the best that you can do, and just giving it 100% I think is more than a lot of people do. So just doing your best, and it's tough, but I enjoy it. And since having kids, I feel like I just want to work even harder and set a good example for them and support my family. I feel like now is a really good time to my mom will watch this afterwards, apologize for her to her. She was a working mom and I was constantly like, why do you work so hard? And now I get it. So I'm sorry,
Yeah.
mom.
No, but well, on the side, who watches the kids when you're working?
My oldest is in school, and then we have a nanny who's home with our almost 8-month-old.
Oh man, I had a nanny, and I had to go through like 5 nannies.
Yeah. Well, I interviewed about 25 because I do it for a living. So they were like, wow, like you're really good at interviewing people. I was like, yeah, it's my job.
I really think that, and not tooting your own horn, but you're really like one of the first people that knows the crap of what you're saying. Like so well rounded and you're so positive and you're so like, I want to be like you when I grow up. You
Thank you.
know? I mean, you're put together. So that's all I'm trying to say. The priorities as the kids grow,
Yeah.
how have your priorities changed as your career grew?
I think I'm a lot more focused now. I think it's before having kids, it was easier to say yes to everything. More meetings, more projects, and I feel like that kind of just creates noise. And when you're working and you're a mom and your wife and even your friends, right? Like you just need to cut out that noise. And just be more intentional about where you're spending your energy, whether that's at work, that's at home. I touched on it a little bit, but I care more about impact over activity. So what moves my family forward? What moves the business forward? What actually matters for my team? And I think, the same goes for my personal life. Just it's made me more efficient and just has made things a lot more clear as to what really requires my attention.
Like every answer you give, I'm just this is gonna be a good podcast. Well, here's a good question, closing one for this one. What advice would you give working moms, and I guess not just in banking, but any industry while trying to be what you just said, a mom, working full time? How to like a balance? What would you say to them?
Yeah. Um, I'll give like a zinger one-liner here. You could do both. You just can't do everything perfectly all the time. I think the most important thing, and this is what I try to foster here, is to find a company where you can be your authentic self. Like finding the right environment that's going to support you as a professional and as a person. You shouldn't feel like you have to hide parts of your life or not talk about your kids, right, to be successful. And I think when it feels right, it makes doing both your career and your family just so much more sustainable.
Last time we're gonna pivot. We're coming into the home stretch.
Okay.
Wait, this is good because we just did something together, which I spoke to a certain somebody, and we're gonna do a follow up with this somebody, and that's what I talked to him about that today. So we did something great together. You created a job, and I introduced you to somebody. Like again, he's like just like one of a kind, and he's a leader. So big question is, you saw something in him. I did too. What defines a great leader in our industry? Do you think?
Yeah, I think a great leader in SBA lending today is someone who creates real impact at the organization, just not individually, right? And I did talk about that. Like, if you're just wanting to come in and be an individual contributor, you're not going to be successful here. There's a couple of other things too. Balancing growth with discipline. So obviously, we're growing. We want someone to come in and help us scale this business, but you have to be disciplined, right? You can't just come in and say, "Well, I want to hire all of these BDOs." That's never going to work here. But they drive production, but they're also thinking about the risk and the sustainability and the long-term health of the business. Another important one is just never putting the company at risk for short-term wins. Their decisions are rooted in what's best for the organization, and again, not just individual success. And someone who's going to create alignment, right? Because as I said, it's chaotic. There's a lot of things going on all at once, and when they can create alignment across sales and credit and operations, so everyone can execute effectively, I think that makes a really good leader.
So Port 51.
Yes.
Why should people? I mean, I know why, but how would you describe? What am I trying to say? I want to say why should people come work there? But that's kind of like lame. What makes Port 51 great?
Yeah. I mentioned I think people leave when there's friction. And that's what I'm seeing in a lot of candidates where they're just so frustrated with what's going on at their current organization that they need to work somewhere that's going to let them succeed, but also give them the tools to do that. So giving them the support, being transparent about compensation, handling SBA in a respectful way. The leaders here have been doing SBA for a combination of, I don't know, 80 years or something like that. All we do is SBA. We understand SBA. We understand how it works. And we're like, you're not going to be working at an organization where SBA is just a part of the organization and it doesn't get the attention that it needs. That's where we excel, right? We're efficient and all we do is live and breathe SBA. I also think that working at an environment that has that potential to grow and scale, but doing it in a sustainable way is something that's so exciting. I think Port 51 is just in this, we're still kind of in that startup entrepreneurial mode, but we're growing so rapidly and at a good pace that we can scale. We're going to be able to do this, and everybody's on board. We're all rowing in the right direction, same direction. When one person is successful, that makes everybody else successful. But also the culture. So we are conscientious about who we hire. We are never going to just hire a producer because they do $100 million. If you're not a good person and you're not going to fit in culturally here, we're going to walk away from that. And I think that's something that's shared across the board, that our culture is most important to us. And you can grow and you can scale and you can do all those right things, but when the culture is not good, that's what's going to break you.
It's just like we should put like all your answers on a board. Like, going back to what you were saying, I know we just started working together, but it's hard to find like what I saw from the outside, everybody on your team is collaborative and they listen
Yeah,
and they're real. And I think that's like what kind of sets you guys apart too.
right.
Is that and you're approachable and you're real.
Yeah,
I'm not saying other SBA lenders, but what makes you unique, like Brittany yourself, but then you also have the other people behind you that are like,
yeah.
oh yeah, like yeah, we're gonna see it because you're all over it, you know. So
Yeah. I think our leadership team is very aligned on where we want this company to go, but most importantly, the values of the company and how we want to act. I think a lot of times culture is not just what you say, but it's what you allow and what you address. And so we don't shy away from hard conversations. If we see behavior that is not sustainable, we're gonna have that conversation. It's never to place blame, but it's to always get a better outcome and to make ourselves better for the future.
yeah, just being out there and like listening and being honest, and that's what really drives a good organization.
Yeah, for sure.
You're really honestly, I gotta tell you, you're one of the most intriguing, real, and everything you say made sense. I mean, this has been great for me, and I
Thank
love working
you.
with you. And so,
Yeah, me too. I enjoyed it. I'm hoping we get to partner together in the future on more placements.
yes, no, we'll definitely do a follow up with
Said person.
said person. But thanks, Brittany, for doing this.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on.